All right, guys. Hi, welcome. No, you're not crazy. Those are crickets and frogs that you probably hear in the background. Um, we just moved this past weekend, so I'm at my old house, which is where our internet is still hooked up, but all of our stuff and everything is at the new house. So our old house is very echoey. So I thought it would actually be better if I sat out on the front porch to do this video, because then you wouldn't have the echo of my house. So instead, you get the lovely sounds of nature behind me, and hopefully you can still hear me okay over the crickets and the frogs. But it would be worse at my new house too. So if you can hear me okay over the background noise, if you could just give me a thumbs up or a it's okay. Otherwise, I can move back inside. But again, I'm just kind of afraid that that it's going to be so echoey, and that's going to be worse. Okay, thanks, Shannon. Okay, good. It's always an adventure, right? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm so sorry about last time. I think I don't know what happened with our internet, or if something got bumped because we were moving or whatever, but hopefully everything's good today. This should be, hopefully, fingers crossed, a shorter one. Tosses is pretty self-explanatory. It's only, it's not a range. It's just one rubric, kind of like jumps. So you just get one score. And then cheer, dance, and toss, we're going to touch on a little bit, but I'm going to save those videos for a not live video training that will come later, because I think it'll just be weird with the way that it's jumping around, and you do have to kind of watch the whole routine for definitely for overall. So we'll go over what to touch on, and then, like I said, in a separate like technique video, I'll show you what a 5, a 7, and a 10 might look like. It's also very subjective, those three categories. And so a lot of it is going to come down to what you think about it, okay, and how it compares to other teams that are at the competition where you are. Pyramids is also coming as soon as we get internet in our new house on Saturday. So I promise I will have them done around then, probably, if it depending on what time it gets set up. So sorry, it's coming. It's a crazy time. All right, so let's get started. Hopefully you guys have your rubrics and your clarification document in front of you, maybe a piece of paper and a pencil to take some notes, etc. All right. Again, here are the contacts. I haven't put that in a couple emails, so just in case you need them, here they are. I will also make sure that these are available in the Facebook group, and Angie, I'm sure, has sent them out already. If not, she can send them out as well. So the website, although it says Maryland Cheer Coaches, it does have all of the scoring documents up there, plus all of the invitational dates and competition dates and stuff like that. So you can go there if you need to see where something is, or what time it starts, or that kind of stuff as well. And then our emails are down here at the bottom. Oops. All right, so the score sheet, again, this is for that final score sheet, the overall judge. So this is toss, cheer, dance, and overall, and this judge is responsible for all of those categories. So total possible points, 130, is the total for all three score sheets added together. Tosses are worth 20 points, like our other rubric categories. So degree of difficulty is 10, technique and execution is 10. The cheer by itself is 10 points, and we combine degree of difficulty and technique and execution. So you have to kind of consider those together for the last three categories. Dance, also 10 points, and then overall impression is 10 points. So overall, this score sheet is 50 out of 130 points, which is actually 38% of the entire score. So this judge is responsible for more of the score than the other two categories. If you remember, those were only 31% each. So it's kind of an important job. We kind of think sometimes, I don't know, there's a stigma about being an overall judge, but I think it's probably one of the harder ones because it is so subjective. You don't really have a place, a specific rubric place to put people. So you really need to know cheerleading and know dance, cheer dance, not like actual dance, in order to do this job correctly. And also, of course, use your head judge to help you. All right, tosses, technique and execution of tosses, much like the other building skills, you want to look at the entire skill from the beginning to the end. So the load in, are the bases standing with their backs up and bending at their legs? Are they creating a deep basket for them to load into? Are their hands in the correct place? Then you want to look at the skill itself and not just what the flyer is doing, but are the bases throwing through that extended position? Are they flying all the way? Are they pushing all the way through? The flyers, are they riding to the top before they try to hit their skill? What is their body position like? Do they have pointed toes? All that good stuff. And then the landing as well. Are they catching her high? Do they have to move a lot? Is the basket itself moving beyond the mat because it's out of control? And again, you're looking at the bases, the back, and the flyer all at the same time, not just the flyer. You want to look at the height of the toss, and not only just I'll get to that in a second, sorry. Flyer control and position in the air. Are they riding to the top, like I just said? And then synchronization and timing among the groups. So one thing we really like to look for is there a consistent height among all of the tosses that they're throwing? So if they have all 4 or 5 going at the same time, are the flyers all at the same height? Are they hitting their skills at the same time? That kind of thing. Or are some groups higher, some groups are lower? Those kind of things count towards that technique and execution, not just what individual groups are doing, but how does it look as a whole? Okay, if they're rippling it, is the ripple make sense? Is it on the good timing? All that kind of stuff. Here are some constructive comments. Again, use the ones that Angie sent as well. But here are just a couple things that you could say that we see a lot of. So define body positions, beautiful center toss, but work toward team skills and execution. So of course they're going to put their best flyer in the front. And you can acknowledge that and then just remind them that it is a team skill. Bases throw through extended positions, use your legs. Bases keep your back straight, like I talked about. Flyers right to the top. Formation makes it hard to see all the skills clearly. This is a good way to say we can't tell what you're doing because it's a hot mess, right? So, or if they have like a square formation, but the front and the back are, right in front of each other, it's hard to see that back skill with the front skill right in front. Like a diamond, rather. Flyers keep your bottoms up in the load and stand up straight. Often we see them bending all the way down, so their bottoms, their butts are almost touching their heels in that load in, and that doesn't help them get any height. And then flyers hollow out and keep core tight throughout the toss. You can also comment on their landing as well. Make sure that you're arching or snapping down, whatever the case is, depending on the skill. Again, just some suggestions. So tosses degree of difficulty. We had a new rubric last year. This year it stayed the same. Is that true? Yes. Or is it different this year? Now I can't remember. We've changed so many different things. I think it's new this year. Sorry. So yeah, new for 2019. So new this year. So we're going to work with the head judge to script all the tosses, and you're going to script specific skills. So and the reason you want to work with your head judge, much like tumbling, sometimes they have 4 or 5 going at the same time, and they try to fake it and make you think that they're doing 5 kick twists, but really one of them does a regular twist, one of them does like a straight ride, and then the other 3 do the kick twist. So, but if they're all going at the same time, it's hard to see clearly all the baskets at the same time. So again, like tumbling, if you separate the mat, head judge, you watch this side, I'll watch this side. ask your stunt judge for help, whatever the case may be, but we need to make sure that we're seeing each individual toss, because just like tumbling, this happens in an instant and it's easy to blink or miss skills or, let your eye wander and not really see what they're doing. Just like all the other rubric categories, we do need to script specific skills. You can't just tally. You need to know exactly what they're doing, and give credit if a skill is attempted and you can tell what it was supposed to be, and then just take off in execution. If you really can't tell, and that does happen, unfortunately, that's when you can say, like, please define skills and tosses, and make a note. Say, this is what we saw. If it's not what you choreographed, you need to work on the execution of it. But if you can tell, if it's attempted and you can tell what it's supposed to be, don't guess. But if you really can tell, give them the degree of difficulty credit, and again, just take off an execution. Missed tosses or pop-outs don't count for expected number of groups. So they actually have to do a toss, even if it's just a straight ride, to get the credit for it. So if they miss a toss or they pop out, that we just pretend like that's not even there. And again, that's a conversation you should have with your head judge, just to make sure you're on the same page with that. Ways to increase in the range: you can add more skills and tosses. So look for tosses throughout the routine. Oh, I'm sorry. This whole slide shouldn't even be here. Pretend that didn't happen. They're not ranges anymore. So here's the new rubric. Elements performed at the same time in a section in a routine. That's the sequence at the top, that definition. And it can include elements performed in a ripple. So they don't have to do all of their baskets at the exact same time. We actually recommend that they don't do that because it's easier to count and see the skills that way. But it does mean that they have to do them within the same section. So they can't do like 2 tosses, move away, do some stunts, come back and do 2 more tosses, and those count as 4 tosses. It has to be all within the same, all the required tosses in the same section. Any additional tosses performed will be considered for execution score and overall impression score. So although they, because they were like, well, what's the point of us putting, our beautiful toe touch at the beginning if it's not going to increase a range? And that's where it can come into play. It can be considered for execution of tosses and then in your overall impression score, which is the same score sheet. So no more ranges for tosses. Coaches kind of like jumps. How many tosses do we really need to see? Coaches were trying to put in 2 full sections plus extra ones, and they still weren't getting the 10. And they were just wondering, like, what else do we have to do? So the committee decided that we're just going to go to straight scoring, and it's going to be 0.5 differences. So 10, expected number of groups perform tosses containing 2 skills and 1 twist in sequence. So these are just examples, but a hitch kick single or a kick kick single would count. Any combination of those. So if they do, if they need 3 tosses, according to this little lovely grid over here, they need 3 tosses and they do 2 hitch kicks and 1 kick kick, they get the 10. It can be a combination of those things. 9.5 is 1 skill and 1 full twist. So a kick single, for example, this actually moves them up. So before to get 9.0 to 10, they had to do the 2 skill and 1 twist. And now we're kind of giving them some more credit and squeezing these ranges together. It's also for the safety of the kids as well. 9.0, expected number of groups perform 2 skill non-twisting tosses. This would be your pike star, or a kick kick without the twist, or a pike pretty girl. I'm trying to think of what else we see. We see sometimes, a half twist. If they're just doing 1 half twist, that could fit here in that 9.0 category too. So if they do like a half twist toe touch and then come back down without completing that twist, that could be the 9.0. So it says non-twisting, but not full twisting. 8.5 is expected number of groups perform 1 skill tosses, including single twists. So if all they do is a single twist, they're 8.5. If they do a toe touch, if they do a pike, if they do just a pretty girl, that's all 8.5. And again, they can do a group of these, if they want to, or they don't all have to do the same toss. It could be a variety of tosses, as long as whatever the majority of them or the expected number of groups does, that's where they're going to hit this rubric. 8.0 is straight rides. So if all they can do is straight rides, and a lot of our JV teams just do straight rides, they're going to get that 8.0. And then 7.5 is less than the expected number of groups perform any tosses. So if they just have one toss in their routine and they have 20 kids, they get the 7.5. And then a 0 is just for no tosses performed at all. Again, this is a change from last year. Yeah, thank you, Angela, or Angie. Yes. Good. I'm glad you're enjoying the ambiance. I'm just reading your comments. I'm glad you're enjoying the ambiance of the crickets in the background. This is much better than my echoey voice, I promise you. Let's take a quick peek at the clarification document. Not a ton of clarifications for tosses, but just a reminder that it's not based on ranges, so there will be awarded a flat score. The required number of groups has changed to expected number, just like the other building categories. Any additional tosses may be considered as part of the overall impression score, like we said at the top of the rubric. D in arch and any variation in arm movements are not considered skills. We need to see their legs moving. So if they just go up straight ride and throw a kiss, that is not a skill. They get that 8.0 for doing straight rides. A ball out is not a 2-skill toss. Let me say that one more time. A ball out is not a 2-skill toss. So once an athlete is in a ball, they have to come out of it to land safely in a cradle. So we're not counting it as a 2-skill. It's just for that's the way you perform it. If they do a pike X or some sort of pike variation, that can count as 2-skill. It's just the ball out that doesn't. And then F is important as well, because the full twist requirement, it doesn't have to be in one rotation. So for example, if the required number of groups perform a half twist, an X out or a toe touch, and another half twist to finish, this would score, I'm sorry, I thought I fixed all these. This would score a 9.5, because it would count as 1 skill and 1 full twist. So they are still, you can add these 2 twists together if they happen at the same time in the air. All right. And then, of course, just like we talked about before, tracking and scripting is very important. So just make sure that you are scripting, literally writing down exactly what they're doing and putting it on that tracking sheet. All right. So let's practice here briefly. Give me 1 second to set this up. You're going to see me sitting on my porch here in a second. Hi. All right. Here we go. Over to... And it just like before, all of these videos are on my YouTube page where you find this video, so you should be able to see them, and hopefully it won't be as glitchy, but we shall see. Okay, so this is St. Michael's, 19 kids on the floor. All right, so looking back at our grid, with 19, they only need 3, so they're lucky. If they had one more kid, they would need 4. All right, this one, I'm starting us off easy here. Let me see if I can go full screen and see what happens. So what do we think about that? Oh, you know what? I had it on fast speed when I was watching this earlier to figure out where their tosses were. Let me slow that back down. They're not usually that fast. Here we go. But that was pretty clear, right? So what do you think? there are 3 pikes. So those are considered single skill tosses. This is not a pike out because, again, they're not like separating their legs. They're just doing pikes, and then they're kind of arching out of it. And so with 3 pikes, that's a single skill toss, 1 skill toss, and that is an 8.5. So they get that 8.5 flat. Let's look real quick, since this isn't glitching. Let's look at their positioning and see what we would do for technique. So they're loading okay. See how this girl over here on the, this girl right here, she starts, this is what we're talking about with not sitting up in the skill. So if you watch when she loads in, and I'm going to try to pause it right there. See how she's like, basically her butt is touching her heels there. If she would just sit up more, she wouldn't have so far to stand up. So that would be a good comment. Flyers, stand up in your tosses. Don't, sit back. They should be holding their own weight. And this girl here too, this back, the backs are kind of bent in. Not good, right? So we want to make comments about that to help them. Overall, their height is pretty good. Their timing is off a little bit, but it's hard to tell from this angle, but it seems like their height is pretty even. So that's a score in the right direction there. All right, let's do at least one more. We're going to go back to this one. This one's a little tricky, but this is pretty true to sometimes the angle that we are watching this. We're on level with the floor. We're not always centered. It kind of depends, especially the overall judge. They kind of usually stick the overall judge at the end. So if you're centered, that's a good day, right? This one, they do all go at the same time. I'll just play it. God bless. Remember, you only get one shot with this live. That's it. Did you blink? You may have missed it. So I'm going to wait and see. What did you guys see? This is one of those situations where it would be very, very beneficial to get together with the head judge and split the floor. Because their timing was off a little bit, the heights were all different, their body positions aren't really defined that well. It is really hard to see clearly what they are all attempting to do. This is also another one of those with with the thing where you're going to attempt the if they're attempting the skill, you're going to give them credit for it. So I see a lot of kick fulls, kick singles. They're actually doing hitch kick singles. So I'm going to play it one more time, and you want to watch for that hitch at the beginning. Here, I'll slow it down. Oops. Hitch kick single. Especially this one. She has the best one. They're all kind of attempting it. This is where that hitch kick really is, that hitch is sometimes really hard to see. And, if a coach ever came back, especially this quality of hitch kick singles, if a coach came back to question this, we would definitely, talk about their technique. So I slowed it down a little bit. I would give these 3 for sure the hitch kick. She's a little questionable. Let's watch it one more time. Try to watch a different one this time. Okay, so she needs to really hit, ride it first, then hit the hitch. She kind of hits the hitch on the way up, but her leg is for sure bent. So again, I would give the attempt for these 3, and this one's kind of iffy, but with they have 19 kids. So with 19 kids, they only need 3, but we would make lots of comments about their technique, right? Front hurdler full. Yes, that's exactly right. A front hurdler full. But she bent her little knee, so we're going to give her the attempt, and then take off in execution. A twitch kick. Yeah, we see a lot of those too. We also see a lot of, I like to call them flying squirrels, where they like go up and wiggle around and then come down, or like the fish ones. Those are all great too. Lots of fun times. All right. Let's go to the next level. I'm sorry, the next things here. Hold on one second. Hi again. You see my big old face. And back to the, here we go. There has to be an easier way. I need to watch like a video about how to navigate this site. Okay. Subjective categories. We've added some explanation of the subjective categories to our clarification document at the request of coaches. So this is definitely a document more for coaches, but it's helpful for us too, so we're all on the same page. So again, subjective categories, all subjective non-rubric categories, including technique and execution scores, will be assessed on a 5 to 10 scale. Therefore, the lowest score given for these categories will be a 5, and that's important to note. So we're kind of working on this 5 to 10 range area for cheer, for dance, for overall, and all technique and execution scores. So a 5 is basically like a 0, as in they barely showed up. They kind of didn't do a whole lot. Maybe all of their tosses fell out. Or the majority of them fell out. That's going to be your 5. Cheer, dance, and overall impression scores include both difficulty and execution, so they're combined into one 10-point category. And they're not, and we're reminding coaches that they should be treated like 10-point categories, not just an afterthought or a transitional element. So if they really want to get that 10, they don't need to just say one cheer as they're one line of a cheer as they're clapping and moving to another formation or another element. It should be its own section in order to increase in that category. No minimum or maximum required length. However, the judges need to be able to identify the section as such and see the skills executed. We need to be able to tell, oh, this is their cheer, or oh, this is their dance. We shouldn't at the end say, did they have a cheer? Did they say any words? Is there a cheer? That's not good. And that's, again, another instance where you might give a 5 or a 5.5. Judges are trained to take the following items into consideration. So here I am, going to tell you all about it. It's not a list of required elements, but a guideline. So they don't have to have all this stuff, but these are things you can consider as you're judging these categories. Motion technique. There's no separate category for motions anymore. Even though I tried to fight for it, I got overruled. So motion technique needs to be, especially in cheer, but also in the other categories as well when flyers have their placement and all that stuff. So we're looking for sharpness, placement, punch, and sink. Are they using their muscles? Are actual motions being used, not just clapping, angry stomping, or transitioning? So they need, a high V, a low V, a T, a K, all those things that we learned when we were cheerleaders. Are they actually using those motions? And are they placing them correctly? Is there voice, clarity, enunciation, volume, participation? Is everyone speaking? Can you hear them over their JV team? Is their volume good? Can you tell what they're saying? We have a big problem with enunciation where it just sounds like squeaky little voices and I can't tell what the heck they're trying to say. So you need to be able to hear that clearly. Synchronization and timing across everybody on the team, are they working together? Not just, are they hitting the motions on the right count, but are their high V's all at the same angle? Are their T's all at the same height? They should be matching each other to have really good motion in synchronization. In the cheer section, do they include footwork? Or are they just are their feet planted in one place and that's it? Do they have floor work or level changes? And we're not talking about every single cheerleader on the floor having to do this on the mat, but are they utilizing, pulling our eye from the front of the formation to the back of the formation or side to side by incorporating some cheerleaders having floor work or level changes? So, for example, the back line stays standing, the middle line goes to a knee. Sorry, there's a big truck going by. Not gonna miss my neighbors with the big trucks in our move. Sorry. So floor work. Anyway, back line standing, middle line kind of goes into a lunge, front line kneeling. That can count as level change or floor work. Even though the back line didn't move, they're still drawing our eye and creating that visual appeal, which is number 6. So creating pictures, moving the eye from front to back or side to side. They're not all just standing and being completely in sync the entire time. Age and audience appropriate. So is the speed appropriate? Sometimes on our varsity teams, they go really slow or they only hit one motion per count. And that's a little slow. They should be able to, speed that up and do it a little faster. Are the words appropriate? We want to lift up our own team, not necessarily tear down other teams. If they're vague and general, we're kind of a little bit lenient with this. If it's something where you're like, oh my gosh, we need to call like a crisis counselor, then that's when you need to say maybe you need to consider your words. Difficulty of motions. Again, are they moving from like a clap to a T, from a clap to a T, from a clap to a T, or are they doing a variety of motions in succession? Transitions and formations, it depends on how long their cheer is. That's something that you could consider. Maybe they don't have a ton of floor work or level changes, but they have some transitions and formations. So it kind of is a juggling act that way. And then of course, energy and facials. We want to see that they actually feel something during their cheer. Yes, I love that Angie said if they have most of these elements, give them the points. Don't be afraid. If you love their cheer, if you think it's fabulous, there's nothing else they could add. Maybe they have some kids doing stunts and they have signs or palms. If that's a thing, we don't necessarily encourage that, but if they do, then that's something. They put a lot of time into their cheer. Some of our teams are not strong tumblers or not strong stunters, and so they really try to utilize their strengths in the cheer or in the dance section. So please reward them for it. Don't be afraid. Okay, dance, kind of the same thing, right? It's very similar. We're looking for that motion technique again. This time, our actual motions being used. Are they using them in a musical way? So that's kind of number 2, dance technique, musicality, partner work. Are they actually dancing? And it's not just like another complete motions section to music. Do they have that, again, that musicality, that ability to stay on beat? Synchronization and timing, same thing. Footwork, floor work, level changes. And just like I said before, it doesn't have to be every single kid. It could be that visual appeal that's drawing our eye front to back or side to side. Again, number 7, age and audience appropriate. So age appropriate, we also mean not just, are the moves appropriate for their age, but also the speed, like we talked about before. We're really trying to get away, and the whole entire industry is trying to get away from the highly sexualized dancing. So when they pull a ponytail and pretend like it's a stripper pole, I can't make this stuff up. We need to comment on that. We don't have to necessarily take off a ton of points, but we need to kind of change the image of our sport. And this is, again, an industry initiative to get back to the athleticism of the sport and away from the hypersexualization of it, especially during the dance section. If they're gyrating or twerking or crawling on the floor, all that kind of stuff, we need to make comments about that. Transition and formations, energies, facials, etc. All that stuff is very important. And performance quality. Do they look like they're having fun? Most of them, they do. They like the dance part. Generally, it's at the end of the routine and they're excited to be done. All right. Overall, things to consider, very similar to what we've seen in the other two categories, right? This time, though, you need to watch the entire routine in order to really give a good overall impression score. So we're looking for overall technique and execution. Again, is the routine appropriate for their ability or age level? Do they have formations and transitions? And are those and we're talking about the entire routine from beginning to end. Are their formations and transitions clean? Are they thought out? Are they fluid? Do they use tumbling to transition? Do they run into each other? That's an issue. Or do they just go from, like we see in like the little mini teams, like the little itty bitty babies in rec, when they just like always stand in the same formation and then they go to their stunts and then they come back to that same formation? Not appropriate for high school teams. Energy, facials, performance quality throughout the whole routine. We especially like when, this is number 5 too, ability to recover from any mistakes. Does the little girl who fell out of her thing cry then throughout the entire routine, which honestly is going to draw our attention away from her teammates, or does she kind of flush it away and continue on? We'd really rather see them do that, and we've been pushing that with our coaches too. Is there visual appeal? Were you excited throughout the routine? Did you remember anything from it? And that kind of plays into number 7 as well, creativity and uniqueness. It doesn't have to be something you've never seen before, but maybe it's just something put together in a way that is interesting. They're not just going straight up and straight down into their into their stunts. They're, using the floor. They're using their team ability appropriately. I'm always, and this is maybe just a personal opinion, but I love to see a nice, clean, simpler routine than a really difficult routine that makes me afraid for their lives. I love when coaches are able to understand the ability of their team and utilize and play up to their strengths. So as an overall judge, that's something I'm looking for. Was this routine appropriate for their ability level, or were they pushing them to do things that were inappropriate for what they're able to do? And again, age and audience appropriate. That last little bullet point down there, although difficulty can be factored in, it shouldn't be a driving force. So again, just like I said, if it's a simple routine, but they have really great formations, they really, sell their performance. They have great performance quality. They have minimal falls, minimal mistakes that way, like performance mistakes. They can still score high in overall, even if it's just a simpler routine. We really want to give them credit for that wow factor. And again, if you're having trouble, you can ask the other judges, hey, what was your technique score in jumps, or what was your technique score for stunts or tumbling? And that way you kind of get a feel for where they are and your overall score isn't completely like all over the place. Carla, I love your point here in the comments. You may not like their choice of music or their choreography. And that's true. It can't just be what you love or hate. Okay, you're like, oh, well, I hate this song. But you have to kind of consider all the elements, and if they're executing what they were given at a high level. Does that make sense? And that's for cheer or and dance, and overall for that matter. All right, we are not going to practice just because, again, watching an entire routine on a screen is kind of hard, but I'll go back and do another practice one with you where I'll talk through a routine. So some takeaways. for the entire judging situation, for our newbies especially, remember you're only doing one category at a time. So, as you're watching these videos, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to learn stunts and tumbling and overall. You're never going to do all of those at the same time. You're only going to do one. So even if you have to rewatch one of these videos before you go judge that day, or, you realize Angie just sent the schedules that you are only doing stunts this season, then really focus on that category. Things will stay the same for the winter. We don't change our rubrics halfway through. And actually, we usually are on a 2-year cycle. So we should keep these rubrics for 2 years. So you have some time. Don't freak out. Focus on the one that you're doing that week, or the couple that you're doing, the week or the week after. You have to use the tracking sheet. It is imperative. It is so important. And really, when you shadow, or for those of us, I don't want to say old people, for those of us veterans, we'll say, for those of us veterans, it's really good to see how other people use their tracking sheet too. So be willing to share, like, hey, I always do a little shorthand on my tracking sheet so I can quickly look and see instead of flipping back through all of my scripting stuff. Talk to the head judge and other judges. Don't be ashamed. Everybody asks questions. Everybody needs help once in a while. It's not a secret. So, like I said in that first video, we are a team. We work together, and that's why there are 6 of us. Please judge and reward what you see. We cannot choreograph for them. We cannot wish for them to have that one extra back handspring. You have to judge what you see. And that goes for technique too. So like we talked about with jumps, if they're all landing with their chests down and then they pop out to that Peter Pan pose, that might not be your personal preference for how jumps should land. But if they are all doing it the same way, that is the way they were taught, and that is the way it was choreographed by their coach. And so we have to judge them on that. Again, judge based on majority. If one kid or a couple kids are off count, we don't really take off many points for that. Be consistent among a competition. You shouldn't be all over the place as far as like, oh, this team's getting a 10 and this other team's getting a 5, and there really is no difference between them, or not a 5-point difference between them. We would love to see constructive, specific comments, especially at invitationals. That really helps the coach. Why? And then after the fact, just for our own sanity, Angie's not getting a ton of emails, or the Maryland Cheer Inquiry emails not getting a bunch about like, well, why did I score this? Or why am I only getting a 7.5 in my dance? What can I add? That's always what they want to know. What can I add? What can I change? So if you're specific in your comments, then it'll save us on the back end too, and we won't have to try to contact you as well. Practice, practice, practice. Please watch these videos. You can Google high school cheer. You can find a bunch of our teams online too that you can practice with that will have choreographed to our rubrics. Even last year's routines should fit these rubrics pretty closely because we didn't make a ton of huge changes this year. So really, I cannot stress that enough. Please practice, and practice live. So I know that we, on these videos, we watch it a couple of times, we slow it down a little bit. You don't have that opportunity, unfortunately, as we're doing it live. So really try to watch it full speed, see how well you do, and then you can always go back and see what you missed and where maybe you need to train your eye as far as learning. All the cars that are driving by are going really slow because I'm like sitting on my front porch with a lamp and my computer. Oh well, who cares? I don't live here anymore. All right. Are there any last minute questions about this? I'm going to give it just a second because I know I'm a little bit ahead of you. There's like a delay. All right, while I'm waiting to see if there's any last minute comments, next week is the safety video. I still have to get with Greg. He wants to try to be a part of that video. So I need to see if we can work out a time to do that. Right now, it's tentatively scheduled for October 2nd, next Wednesday at 8. I'm going to try to keep it that date and see if Greg is available then. We should be able to double team this video and I can add him in as a second presenter, but we'll see how that goes. So be looking for that. Also coming soon, the pyramid video. I haven't forgotten about that. And some technique video where I'll go through like what's a 5, what's a 7, what's a 10. And also for cheer dance and overall, we'll do a little bit of that too. I just feel like that would be better not live because of the way that the screen was glitching before. Although tonight it looked fine, so who the heck knows. All right. Oh, Carla found a cricket emoji. So cute. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much again for tuning in. This has been an interesting experience and very fun. We'd love to hear your feedback if the live was good, bad, ugly. If you liked being able to make comments live, or if, like last year, you just prefer to watch the recorded videos, which I know some people are doing anyway. Hi, people who are watching the not live version. All right. And yes, Angie said she would suggest that everyone like at least looks at the safety video or watches it, if not live, then at some point. It does help with stunts and tumbling, especially, and tosses, I guess, but especially because you can tell what is legal and what's not legal. All right, well, the crickets and I are signing off. Have a good night, and I'll see everybody this season. It's starting soon. All right, guys. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys liked the live. Okay, seriously. Bye. Bye. How do I end? Oh, here we go. End broadcast. Bye, everybody.